Hey guys, it's Vampire Mike from Sega CD Universe, and I want to talk about Night Killer. Night Killer is a movie by Clyde Anderson, who is actually Claudio Fragasso, who you may know from Rats, Beyond Darkness, Zombie 3 and 4, I believe, and many other apocalyptic horror and Italian exploitation films from the 70s, 80s, and I think 90s. He is most famously known for Troll 2, which is one of my favorite bad good movies. If you haven't seen Troll 2, check it out. It is funny. This movie's a little strange in that Italy used to have a track record of taking a film, I guess in the 80s or early 90s, that was very popular elsewhere, and then slapping a title of a sequel onto it to ride the coattails. So this was in Italy initially released as Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, which supposedly pissed off Claudio Fragasso. Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3 Leatherface came out shortly thereafter anyway. So they just tricked some people, I guess, and then moved on from it. They eventually changed the movie back to the real name, Night Killer. The other thing is it takes place in Virginia, so why it was called Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, besides that, I don't know. The story is this woman on the cover. This is a decent, animated version of her. Is attacked by this guy in this rubber mask with this long rubber nail glove thing. It's like glove with like long fingernails. He looks almost like a cheap man's version of Freddy Krueger, though it has nothing to do with dreams or anything like that. They show him going around killing people. Excuse me. And he captures her and rapes her and beats her, and she gets away. But she's so traumatized and has such like a mental breakdown from it, she can't remember what he looks like, and she, I guess, blocks some of what happened. So she gets out of the hospital. I don't know if it's months or years later. I don't remember. And she's being followed by this guy, and he captures her, and he's berating her and abusing her and putting a gun in her mouth, and he sounds exactly like the character with the mask and the rubber glove. I don't want to say too much to spoil anything. So that's the gist of the story. Meanwhile, every time this guy who's now abusing her in now time leaves the room, it then cuts to clips of the rubber masked character or whatever going around killing women. What he tends to do is he takes his claw glove, which is very amusing and gory because it's made of rubber. You can see it's rubber. And he just rips through people's bodies. It goes right to like their chest or their stomach and makes a hole in their stomach with his claw glove. I don't know why, because he's a human and the glove is made of rubber. It's not like metal or anything. So I have no idea who has such force in their arm that they're able to rip through someone's body, kind of like Ricky O or whatever. So that's pretty funny. It is cool though, and there's some gratuitous nudity, some violence. They refer to the movie as a psychological thriller, but there is horror in it as well. Initially, Claudio Fragasso said he wanted just a psychological thriller, and he was very mad that afterwards I think it's Bruno Mattei, had added these scenes of the serial killer guy murdering people, because he said you added all these elements that don't look the same and feel totally different than the rest of the film. But then he said years later he realized it sort of needed that. It needed that element to it, because otherwise there was no gore and really no violence. It was just psychological thriller. I don't know if you could see it very well, but the character on the back there is the dude with the rubber mask. They also, for some reason, called this the Virginia Claw Massacre. I think that was just kind of like a joke because of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3 moniker. It is a pretty good, bad movie. If you haven't seen it, I would definitely recommend it. There is a cool little twist, actually two little twists in the film. There's some weird character interaction, some funny dialogue, as I said, gore, some violence, a little nudity. There's like a weird topless scene at the beginning with the main girl where she gets don't know if it's before or after she gets this phone call where the guy's yelling at her, but she goes into the mirror and she's trying to like psych herself up and she's talking and you could tell she's not like all with it. And she drops her top and she just starts tickling herself and saying, "You're okay." I can't think of her character's name in the movie. And she's like, "You're okay. You're a mother now and things are better." And it's like, I understand, like, if you're mentally, not with it and you're trying to psych yourself up and you're like, all right, you got to stick with it. You have a kid and you have to be strong and you're this and you're that. She's tickling her own breasts while she's saying it. So it's a very weird scene that I don't think a woman normally would do while trying to like psych herself up to be strong. So there's just some weird choices, which Claudio Fragasso is good at making. He makes very weird choices in his films. Um, I will wholeheartedly recommend this. It looks very good. The beginning doesn't look great, but then it definitely gets better. I don't know if that's because that's the Bruno Mattei shots maybe don't look as well as the Claudio Fragasso shots. It says here, I'll read the back to you. Somewhere between Zombie 4 and Troll 2, writer-director Claudio Fragasso, under the name Clyde Anderson, set out to direct a suspense thriller about a suicidal beauty, an unstable sleazebag, and masked killer, with a razor-fingered glove. But when the producers received Fragasso's cut, they hired his former partner, Bruno Mattei, to shoot additional scenes of graphic gore and release it in Italy as the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. The result is part sicko giallo, part depraved slasher, and 100% batshit insanity that Eurofever calls disturbing, nasty, and more inspired than most Italian horror of the 90s. Peter Hooton from Inglourious Basterds and Tara Buckman from Silent Night, Deadly Night star in this glorious slice of Italio sleaze, co-written by Rossella Drudy from Shocking Dark, now scanned in its 4K original negative. So there's also 2 interviews on the disc, and the one interview I watched is the one with Claudio Fragasso, and it needs to be seen. If you are a fan of this movie or you've watched this, check out the interview. It's 20 minutes, 24 minutes of him talking in Italian with subtitles, and he talks about how the main actor was gay and how the main actress and him didn't get along, and she felt the scenes were fake because he wasn't attracted to her because he was gay, so they would always fight on set, and that the temperatures were like in the negatives, and Claudio and the main actress were like freezing up and locking up because it was so cold outside, and she jumped in the beach water. He makes some really funny off-color comments. He calls the police sheriff or the chief of police's son, who was an extra in the film, like a retard in the middle of the thing. He's like, he was an extra on our set, but he was a retard. And his father let us use all the cop cars we wanted, so we had to put up with him. It was very funny. He describes getting a massage from a big black guy that looks just like Mike Tyson, like a gay version of Mike Tyson. He is what he calls him. The interview just goes left, right, and then back on track. It's very funny, which I guess is sort of how his movies are. They're a little all over the place, and then they tend to focus. But I will definitely recommend this if you like cheesy horror, bad horror, and bad like psychological horror thrillers, or not psychological horror, but like thrillers. It's not necessarily a good movie. It's definitely interesting, and I like it. But it's more of like, if you're a bad movie fan, I would probably check it out. Plus, the history with the whole Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3 thing is just interesting nonetheless. So yeah, check out Night Killer by Severin. Let me know if you guys have seen this, what you think. Thanks, guys, for watching. It's Vampire Mike from Sega CD Universe. Be good.